So, what do you think it means to be fluent in a second language? And tell me about any experiences you've had with any foreign languages.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this question about fluency, and I think it comes down to two main things. One is, I would say, when you reach a point of fluency, it has a lot to do with your vocabulary and your, vocabulary mainly. I think you feel like you're fluent in a language when you get to a point where you don't have to constantly search for vocabulary words, where you can talk pretty easily without having to stop and think too much. So your speech becomes not choppy but fluent. And then there's another level of fluency, I think, that has a lot to do with linguistic register. So when you can switch between registers effectively and talk to your boss or talk to your friends or talk to your students. And I think that's another really important piece of fluency, but it's more advanced. So that's my two-part answer for that question. In terms of languages, so let me think. You just want to know like how many I studied and when I studied them? Okay. So high school I did Spanish and French. And then in college I continued Spanish and French, and I studied Russian and Italian for a year each, so I didn't get a lot of those. And the Italian got all mixed up with the Spanish, and it was crazy. And then since then I've dabbled a little bit in Welsh. I've tried studying Icelandic. I did a little bit of Portuguese, and I took a Korean class for almost a year. So I think probably those 9 are the ones that I've studied.
And do you consider yourself fluent in any of
Oh,
those?
golly, no, English.
What does it mean to be fluent in a second language, and what is the best way to learn a second language?
Well, in my opinion, it comes down to the question of what do you mean by fluent? And in my case, I have a personal condition that speaks to this. Although I grew up speaking primarily English, one of the first languages that I learned alongside English was Japanese. But my mother stopped speaking to me in Japanese around the age of 3, and I didn't speak any Japanese until we moved to Japan when I was about 8. Now the interesting thing is, for me, Japanese remains a very emotional language and emotion-laden language, and remained quite rudimentary. It holds the same level of emotional resonance as English does. Conversely, I started learning Spanish when I was about 30, and although my Spanish is far more fluent in terms of the amount of vocabulary, my understanding of sentence construction, and my ability to use it on a day-to-day basis for more than just simple conversation, it remains a flat language to me. It has, the language of romance, as many people call it, is to me and remains so a flat and uninteresting and very technical language, which is kind of sad, I'll admit. But in some sense, am I fluent in Japanese? In one sense, not at all. In the sense of metrics, not at all. But in the sense of having emotional context and emotional characteristics, definitely so. And with Spanish, it's the complete opposite.
What's the best way to learn a second language?
I think the best way to learn a second language would probably be like some sort of semi-immersive school environment, where the vast majority of the things are in the second language, but then I suppose math, and then English wouldn't be.
What's the best way to learn a second language?
I would say taking some kind of academic preparatory class, and then in your native speaking country, and then moving to the country where you're studying their language and living there for a little while.
What is the best way to learn a second language?
Travel to a different country and stay there for a while.